The X-Men against all the odds are back. They're more back than they've possibly ever been back before. Even after Dark Phoenix, even after the destruction of Fox, even after that awesome Green Day montage in Deadpool and Wolverine, the original Recipe superhero team is back, and alongside the Avengers no less. For the first time ever, we're getting the X-Men alongside Earth's mightiest heroes and the Fantastic Four, and I for one am very, very hyped. I couldn't be happier that it's the classic team, spearheaded by Stewart, McKellen and Marsden. They're my X-Men, and whilst I get people want an MCU reboot, that's coming eventually. This is the Multiverse Saga. It makes sense that the team will get one final hurrah. Some of the announcements are absolutely insane, much like Wesley Snipes' Blade. I never in a million years thought we would get Alan Cumming back as Nightcrawler or Rebecca Romijn as Mystique. I wouldn't worry about not getting a full set either. There's no way Marvel won't try to lock down Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry and Famke Janssen, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get the original Rogue, Iceman and Colossus too. What's funny about this team of X-Men averting their own apocalypse so many times is that their actual apocalypse would have been a more appropriate apocalypse. It could have been the perfect Fox counterweight to Infinity War and Endgame, to give them that final hurrah. I've thought about it for so many years, and even though we're now getting their Doomsday, it's tough not to ponder what could have been.
Everything they've built will fall from the ashes of their world. We'll build a better one.
If you like my X-Men videos and you want more Marvel videos in the lead up to Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, then please subscribe for more. And if you want to hear my thoughts on Daredevil Born Again, the grand finale, as well as the upcoming weeks of Doctor 2 and Andor, then please head on over to the Full Fat Podcast. The link will be in the description and pinned comment below. 2014's Days of Future Past was a very successful X-Men movie, and Simon Kinberg at the time said it was their Avengers level threat, their big superhero crossover event. Making $746 million at the worldwide box office, it was the most successful film in the series outside of the wildly popular Deadpool movies. The sequel, X-Men Apocalypse, made $200 million less, which was considered disappointing as a follow-up, and the subsequent movie was a total flop that barely anyone even remembers. What went wrong? How did Fox create an Avengers tier movie in terms of success with X-Men, and then get such diminishing returns 2 movies later? I think the problem was that the MCU built upon the first Avengers, whereas the X franchise decided to run away from what made Days of Future Past such a success. X-Men had kind of been in limbo from 2006 to 2014. In 2009, producer Lauren Shaladonna had said that a treatment for X4 and X5 had been pitched to Fox, but nothing ever came of it. Wolverine went on his solo adventures, but neither time really thrilled on the level of the old team-ups. First Class was unexpectedly brilliant, but its continuity with the previous movies meant it was unconfirmed as a prequel or a reboot. A sequel could have recast a whole new team for McAvoy, and I don't think anyone would have minded too much. It was around the same time Spider-Man was being reset and the current Batman was signing off, so the 2010s could have easily given us an all-new, all-different X-Men led by First Class's cast. Days of Future Past squashed all that. It continued with what worked from the Limbo era. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, James McAvoy's Xavier, Michael Fassbender's Magneto, and Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique all got substantial roles. But crucially, it reassembled the original team, reigniting them in pop culture consciousness, and even brought back characters that were unfairly and unceremoniously killed off, like Scott and Jean.
Logan, is everything alright?
Yeah, I think it is.
The ending of the present timeline in Days of Future Past is like a definitive happy ending for fans of X1 and X2. The school is alive and well, everybody lives, and the stage was set for a true X4 just as Shaladonna had planned. To be honest, given the way the X-Men prequels went, and considering the fact that Xavier and Magneto both had a movie each to transform into their older counterparts, it would have made more sense to continue the present timeline rather than the old one. I genuinely think the present day cast, with some updated costumes to please the hardcore, could have continued forward and excited audiences. However, it was probably more cost effective to do what they did and cast newer younger versions of those same characters, and make a direct sequel to the 70s portion of Days.
Well, at least we can all agree the third one's always the worst.
So then we got X-Men Apocalypse. In the movie, Apocalypse is so powerful. He has a multitude of different mutant powers and can acquire more through a body-switching ritual. It takes the combined might of all the X-Men and Magneto to even slow him down. He is easily the most powerful mutant the film series ever saw, well, until the new Phoenix came in. The introduction of Apocalypse really just ended up being a single movie one and done that felt small in comparison to even Days of Future Past and was only a setup to yet another Dark Phoenix adaptation. I think this was the single biggest mistake on a story level. The Blue Mutant should have remained the big bad. Villainous Magneto had been played out, the Phoenix had been played out. Apocalypse was Fox's answer to Thanos, and given the proper treatment, could have been every bit as iconic and antagonistic as the purple nutsack was in the MCU's cosmic double bill.
I'm gonna blow that nutsack of a chin right off your face.
So how would you pull it off? Well, first off, I think the idea of having two timelines playing out in unison was the secret sauce of Days of Future Past. Seeing the present X-Men and past X-Men coordinating to stop the Sentinels in both timelines was nothing short of awesome, and it set it apart from the MCU in a definitive way. So X-Men Apocalypse Part 1 would feature both the happy ending Days cast led by Jackman, Stewart, Berry and the others, whilst also following a younger team led by McAvoy, Fassbender and Lawrence. We wouldn't pick just one team and risk seeing the epic scope diminished like it was in the version of Apocalypse we got, and it would not only form the spine of the story, but it would be the USP in opposition to the Infinity War movies on the horizon from Marvel Studios. And if Marvel can juggle teams like the Avengers and the Guardians all in one movie, I think we could definitely handle present day X-Men and 80s X-Men. But how do you keep that idea fresh without involving a retread of time travel? One of my favourite additions to the road cut of Days of Future Past is the scene where Magneto and Iceman break into the X-Mansion in the future. But aside from it being a cool side mission, the reason this scene kicks ass is the editing. It's intercut with a scene from the original cut that played out conventionally, young Magneto stealing back his helmet. In the Rogue cut, the two timelines are synced together to satisfying effect. So let's run with this idea for the entirety of Apocalypse. Rather than it being straight up time travel, the movie cuts back and forth between the two teams because of Unsavanur. Wolverine and the present X-Men team face off against Apocalypse, but they learn that the Professor, Mags, Scott, Jean, Storm and Beast came face to face with the villain decades before. They thought they stopped him, but it appeared they only delayed his takeover of Earth. From there, the dual timelines would play out. We'd learn more about both Apocalypse and the X-Men through the structure, how history repeats itself, how the same mistakes are made, and crucially, how Apocalypse gains the upper hand by knowing exactly how to play the X-Men a second time around. The period team thought they faced the toughest mutant on the planet, but it turns out he wasn't even at full strength. You could have kept Jackman in the present day timeline and used the period timeline to focus on different X-Men. You could have Cyclops and Jean meet as per X-Men Apocalypse and show them falling in love across this two-parter. You see how the relationship blossomed, and then you contrast that with the present, where things are less than perfect because of the presence of Logan and the mistrust that has been forged across the original movies. Can they rekindle the magic of when they were young? What's great about the finale to Days is that Magneto is actively fucking things up in the past, whilst in the present he's telling Charles, oh, if only I hadn't done all that stupid shit, maybe we'd be better off.
All those years wasted fighting each other, Charles. To have a precious few of them back.
The audience gets such a well-rounded view of the character just from seeing those versions cut together, so you could do so much of that with other X-Men through this structure. Keep it simple, we don't need a younger Nightcrawler and Angel, just give us a younger Jean, Cyclops and Storm and Beast. Keep Havoc, and I'd honestly kill him off because it would be great fuel for Cyclops. You just need to do it in a way that actually makes it resonant rather than how it is in the movie. A way to quickly write a character out who no longer has purpose in the narrative. Characters like Nightcrawler would work better coming back in the present, so that we get Alan coming back, because that is a goated version of the character. See my video for more on that. We get a proper movie with Kelsey Grammer's Beast, juxtaposed with Nick Holt's Beast in the same movie. There's only one more addition to the 70s team I think is a must. we of course need to get Quicksilver, the star newcomer from Days. There's no way we're leaving him out. Imagine seeing a huge battle sequence that's like the intercutting from the Magneto scene, but on steroids. Seeing two X-Men teams battling Apocalypse in both timelines, and how their powers and teamwork has evolved. Scott, Jean, Storm, Beast, Quicksilver, and the young Xavier and Magneto in the 70s, and then Wolverine, Iceman, Rogue, the present day Scott, Jean, Storm, Nightcrawler, all of those guys fighting Apocalypse a second time. Obviously Apocalypse wins in the first part, and then in the second movie we get a full-on Age of Apocalypse style movie where everything goes to hell. And unlike Endgame, we still hold off on time travel. Unlike the 2014 installment, Xavier and Magneto can't undo the past to fix this. Instead, the past timeline that we cut back to provides the unexpected key to defeating Apocalypse once and for all, something that was ignored that actually could change everything. Thus, even though the present X-Men drive the second part, the past timeline is still invaluable to the plot and plays an important role. Think of It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 in that way, but obviously not like the second part. Good.
He's my father.
What?
Him and my mom, they did.
No, I know.
I'd also finally pay off all of the family ties in this two-parter, rather than ignoring it all. Have Quicksilver reveal himself as Magneto's son, and see that relationship develop, especially after he loses his family. Give Nightcrawler and Mystique a bond. Arcs that are set up in the past are paid off in the present. The younger X-Men like Iceman, Kitty and Rogue parallel the younger Psyche, Jean, Storm and Beast. You get more of the retro flavour of First Class and Days, more of McAvoy and Fassbender, but also more of Stewart and McKellen. Rather than giving us the original trilogy cast back from the grave before banishing them all over again, you give them all the focus they deserved all the way back in 2006. Apocalypse delivers on being the villain that he is from the comics, rather than being pitifully dispatched in the same movie he first appears in. X-Men Apocalypse Part 1 would have been Fox's answer to Infinity War 2 years early, and then X-Men Apocalypse Part 2 would have been Fox's answer to Endgame. Mr. Sinister was teased in the final days of the Foxverse 2, but I would have loved to have seen this potentially John Hamm iteration by Apocalypse's side. X-Men 97 and other X-Media has shown he can hold his own, but I love it when he's Apocalypse's answer to Starscream. Having him by APOC's side in this two-parter would have been great and further raised the stakes for the X-Men. What if he even betrayed Apocalypse in the second part and became a dangerous third player in the war between mutants? That would have been very on brand. This awesome double bill could have served as the Infinity War endgame of the Foxverse, and it would have lined up perfectly to the time that Fox was unfortunately sold to Disney. This would have been across the board a top to bottom improvement over the Apocalypse Dark Phoenix 1-2 punch. The only thing this might have meant destroying would be Logan. But hear me out. Supposing the first part came out in 2016 a la the original Apocalypse, and then maybe part 2 came out in 2017, then that would leave 2018 or 2019 for Hugh Jackman to get one last solo movie. So much like Judgment Day, Logan wouldn't be erased, only postponed. Imagine if Fox had built momentum rather than losing it after Days of Future Past. I see lots of apathy for this continuity, and lots of demand for the X-Men to be fully rebooted in the MCU, but I think that's born out of the fact that the series has a reputation for letting us down. When you really think about it, there's just as many good X-Men films as bad ones, and out of the good ones, they rival, if not best, the MCU. So if Fox had made an awesome two-part Apocalypse epic that engaged fans instead of X-Men Apocalypse and X-Men Dark Phoenix, I'm sure more people would have been eager for them to stick around, and I wrote that before Avengers Doomsday got announced and before the cast got announced, and it is insane and awesome that they are finally coming back. Even so, no matter what happens, I wish the core X-Men films either ended with the happy resolution of Days of Future Past, or topped it with an Apocalypse story befitting of the source material. Only now do we get a chance to make everything right in 2026 and 2027. What do you think? Were you happy with how things played out? Would you have preferred a two-part epic for X-Men vs Apocalypse? Should X-Men Days of Future Past have been the definitive conclusion to the Fox-Men, putting all of this to bed? What would you have done with Apocalypse on film? Let me know in the comments below. And let me know which X-Men you want to see in Avengers Doomsday. A huge thank you to Dr. Chike and Peter Vaughan for being my full fat patrons. Your contribution to keeping the channel running is immeasurable. If you'd like to join the Patreon for exclusive goodies, early releases of main videos, the podcast, video scripts, and a thank you in the credits, then please head on over to patreon.com/fullfatvideos to choose one of the paid tiers.